host, Rocco Rossi.
Hello everyone and welcome to the 2022 Ontario Business Achievement Awards, brought to you by our generous presenting sponsors at Canadian National Railway. Look, as the indispensable partner of business, the Ontario Chamber of Commerce is constantly having conversations with leaders across the economy. As you know, this year's overarching theme for the awards is building the inclusive economy, because it's absolutely crucial that we leverage every bit of talent from every person in the economy. To do that, however, we need to develop ways to attract, retain, inspire our workers. And so we've gone to our friends at the Diversity Institute to help us with their thought leadership. Here's a bit of context for you before we have that conversation.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so I'm just going to jump right in with some stats. Women represent around 500,000 of Canada's core employed working age population, aged 25 to 54. Women's employment in high-skilled jobs have increased by more than 10% over the last decade, which is twice the percentage increase of male employment in high-skilled jobs. What are your thoughts on that based on what you've seen and the work that you do?
Seeing that with clients really across the spectrum, but primarily in public sector, it's great to see that they are leading with diversity, equity, and inclusion within their organizations. What we're doing is we have a very aggressive approach. Over the next 5 to 10 years, what we're doing is we are doubling down on our approach with women in our senior leadership roles, and making sure that within the next 5 years, that they occupy 45% of those senior leadership roles, and then in the next 10 years that they occupy 50%. So there'll be equity right across the organization, and that includes all diversity.
You know, Michelle, one of the important issues we hear is that women bear a disproportionate burden of unpaid work, a burden which has increased as a result of COVID-19. We've seen that in many different instances. What are your thoughts on that?
It's obviously long been a problem, but even, I would say, accelerated during the pandemic. We saw a lot of women actually leave the workforce during that time. What we've done is we participated in the pledge, led by Women Capital Markets, to ensure that there's equal access to parental leave. Also, I would say, even within our organization, we have a number of inclusion networks. So with Indigenous Inclusion Network, Black Inclusion Network, South Asian, Women in Inclusion, and parents at PwC. So we actively encourage parents to participate in that network as well, so that they can learn from each other on how to continue to participate. But I would say even above that, the Women in Inclusion Network is where women can hear from each other and ensure that they stay active and that they can learn how to continue to participate in the labor market.
What would you say would be the 3 key takeaways that we could offer?
3 easy, actionable items that any organization, small, medium-sized businesses, large enterprises can take. It doesn't matter how small, how large, but have a DE&I action plan. Call me at PwC. Always can embed that right into your policies, into your programs, into your services, but having an action plan. Ensuring that you have equal access to parental leave, that is an easy doable at any organization. And the final one is mentorship. Ensuring that your organization has some level of coaching or mentorship. And again, we provide that information and knowledge and happy to do knowledge sharing with any organization. We do that as well. We walk the talk at PwC, and would love to bring that to more clients.
Thanks for sharing that, Michelle. Great points, very insightful.
Great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump right in with some numbers. As of August 2020, employment rate for Indigenous women decreased by 8% since August 2019. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, it's probably not too surprising. We all saw that a number of women left the workforce during March 2020. It was a tough year for a number of Indigenous people. We saw socioeconomic gaps that were exacerbated through COVID.
Yeah, and you know, our conversation is around, harnessing talent and hiring Indigenous people. What is needed to bridge education and employment gaps for Indigenous people?
I think first and foremost is equal funding for Indigenous K-12 education. I think the other is, we do a lot of work about going into post-secondary and in looking at retention of Indigenous students in post-secondary, but we need to do more in secondary. We need to be in high schools saying, I'm an Indigenous engineer and you can be an Indigenous engineer. And then we need to look as employers at hiring based on capability, not capacity.
So what are some of the specific actions employers should take?
We're seeing the conversation about EDI being such a popular conversation, something we're talking about more than we ever were. And I think just having those conversations within an organization and making commitments to employment, looking at diversity at your boardroom, at your executive table, and ensuring that you're finding ways to build succession plans for your diverse employees is so important. We've also really seen an increase in corporations looking at building a reconciliation action plan or an Indigenous inclusion strategy. The key piece about that is that can't live just within HR or just within your Indigenous relations team. It has to be across your whole organization.
Of course. Can you share some examples of what's working really well?
Yeah, so we've recently seen a number of larger corporations come out with a reconciliation action plan with key targets, public targets on their employment, on retention. We've also seen some good examples at organizations where they've developed an Indigenous advisory circle. So brought together Indigenous leaders that can really help the corporation look at where they need to improve and what should the priorities be.
Those are great examples. I specifically like the measurement, the key targets, the numbers, because if it doesn't count if you can't measure it.
No, and being public facing about it
Yes.
as well, right? Really puts your commitment behind it that you have to ensure that you're going to meet those targets.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, so what's the one thing for any organization looking to hire Indigenous individuals? What is the one piece of advice that you would give?
In your hiring, in your attracting, I think we need to be very proactive in saying it's okay if you don't have any of these skills. We are looking at your capability and where we might be able to bring you into a leadership position. So apply anyway.
Thank you, Tabitha, for sharing those great points. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
These conversations are so incredibly important, and that's why I want to thank again CN as our series presenting partner. It's personal for me. I grew up in an immigrant family, and until my mom was able to learn English, she was really trapped at home with her kids. Once that opportunity was open to her, she was able to join the workforce, and it changed her life. It changed all of our lives. That is just one small example of ensuring that we leverage the talents of each and every individual in our economy for them to be successful and for the economy to be successful.
Welcome, Sarana.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to jump right in. Research shows bias are embedded each stage of the design of jobs, outreach, recruitment, hiring, and the advancement process. What do companies need to do at each stage to uncover and address these biases?
The first thing that companies have to do is to recognize and acknowledge that there are biases in the recruiting, hiring, and integration processes for newcomer clients, for racialized clients. And in order to then make steps and changes, they need to ensure that their policies, their procedures, and operations related to recruiting and integrating talent are revised in light of recognition of that bias. That includes changing the way job descriptions are prepared, ensuring that the panels that they use for interviews have diverse talent on there, that they create mentorship and championship processes for newcomer talent in their businesses, and then they put metrics in place to measure the number of people, the number of people coming into the organization who are racialized and diverse, and the ones that are remaining and being promoted into leadership opportunities.
So how would you respond to foreign-sounding names? For example, Samir was invited to interview 30% less times than the candidate named Matthew.
We need to focus on the talent and skills and capabilities that Samir may bring to your business and how it can help transition and grow and provide innovation to your business. So some of the things that businesses can do is to first look at introducing blind applications where the candidate names are not included for hiring managers to review, just their skills and education and training. Secondly, you could ensure that your interview panels are made up of diverse people, different backgrounds and capabilities who look beyond a name and to see the skills and talent that you can have to your business. And finally, to recognize that newcomers are brought to Canada because of the value that they can bring to our economy. And you're missing out on the growth of your business, the success of your business without tapping into that talent. And that talent are going to leave Canada. We really do not want that. So foreign names and foreign credentials are critical to our growth and success as a country. Tap into that resource.
Yes, absolutely. So as we look at, hiring racialized individuals, what is the two takeaway? What are the two tools that you could offer to our audience?
There's a fantastic resource that was developed by TMU, the BBP, and other organizations that is a micropedia tool. And it really provides a framework for organizations to understand microaggression, how those manifest in your business, and develop strategies, tools, and resources to combat that effectively so that you can ensure that people who are brought in feel that they belong and they can be successful in your business. And secondly, you can consider working with other organizations, community organizations who work with different groups of people, whether it's racialized people, newcomers, such as Skills for Change, or people with neurodiversity, visible and non-visible disabilities, and then also look at how you engage with other organizations who have made good strides, learn from their successes and their stories to make changes in your business.
Sarana, thank you so very much for sharing your dynamic insights with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Lisa, it's so great to meet you in person. I've seen you many times on Zoom.
Yes, we have. We've had a few different interactions. It's a pleasure to meet you as well.
We know concern with stigma leads many to hide their differences. What can we do to reduce stigma and stereotypes?
It's a great question to lead off with because I think it captures a lot of first of all, the breadth of disability and the fact that it is affected by both time and scale. So how severe it is and whether something's chronic or episodic or permanent. What we want to do as people with or without disabilities is stop and think about, do I have a bias that I'm not aware of? Educate yourself. And beyond education, because you can read a book, you can read an article, you can come to one of the trainings I give, but that's not going to do it. You actually have to interact with people, hire people, recruit people, listen to people. And I think that that's at the root of everything. And once you start doing that, it just kind of, all those unconscious biases drift away.
So what are the steps employers can take to attract, retain, and include persons with disabilities?
So I often get people starting on that, attraction piece. But for people with disabilities who are underrepresented in the labor market, they have about twice the unemployment rate as people without. They need to know that the company has thought about this and is actually interested beyond just lip service or, a phrase at the bottom of the job posting that says, please apply if you have a disability. So that means executive leadership has to buy in, and they have to share that publicly so that everybody in that company knows this is a priority. Everybody knows it's okay to ask about this, to make mistakes, be corrected, learn, move forward to it. And then that will go into the HR, where they can actually start using inclusive language in job postings. They can offer accommodations in interviews, and of course offer accommodations, which I will say are very, very infrequent and actually don't cost very much, but to people once they start on the job.
What would you say to employers hiring individuals with disabilities? Where's the opportunity?
Well, it's an underrepresented demographic, in the labor market. So people looking for jobs, ready for jobs, just as qualified. So you're getting qualified talent. Number two, there's a lot of statistics, reports, studies that show when we hire people with disabilities, we see an overall improvement in workplace culture, an overall improvement in productivity, an overall improvement in net profit, and an overall improvement in terms of retention across the entire organization. So people with disabilities are just as or more productive than people without. They have better attendance records, and they have a better safety record. It's a great candidate pool to draw from. So the door's open. Sign up at www.discoverability.network.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for the expert knowledge that you've shared today. I mean, I've learned a lot, and I appreciate your input. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Special thanks again to our series partner, CN.
In 2021, CN continued to play a vital role in the North American economy, powering sustainable growth for our customers, our people, and our communities. CN's resilient railroaders safely navigated a challenging year to keep the North American supply chain moving. In Western Canada, we invested in infrastructure and equipment to grow our capacity and increase our share of new industrial production, while also responding to shifting demands in commodities. In Eastern Canada, we're developing terminal capacity to provide our customers with cost-advantageous intermodal routes. In the U.S., we intend to boost our competitive presence and capabilities in the Gulf region with daily trains from key markets like Chicago, Detroit, and Memphis. Safety is a core value at CN, and we have an uncompromising commitment to the health and safety of our employees, the customers we serve, and our neighboring communities. CN continues to demonstrate leadership with respect to environmental, social, and governance initiatives. 2021 saw CN continuing to contribute to the communities where we live and work. CN enables North American and global trade, and our tri-coastal network connects customers to the world. To all our dedicated railroaders, our customers, and supply chain partners, the communities in which we operate, our stakeholders and shareholders, thank you.
We know from research that has been done by the Future Skills Center, as well as the conversation we've been having today, that harnessing diversity, inclusion, and equity is not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. It helps businesses grow by tapping into the best and the brightest. It helps businesses grow by understanding increasingly diverse markets, and it drives innovation and growth. We heard today from numerous leaders on how they've addressed inequities in the workforce to harness the skills of women, Indigenous peoples, racialized peoples, and persons with disabilities. And I really want to thank our guests for sharing their insights and the lessons they've learned in helping contribute to the discussion. Applying an equity, diversity, and inclusion lens to your business is a strategic imperative. All it takes is the first step.
Thank you, Wendy, for those incredibly important reminders and for being such a great partner to the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. These issues are not just about social justice, they're about economic potential, productivity, competitiveness, and that's why we're delighted to be part of that conversation. And so pleased to be working with incredible partners like Nadine Spencer of Brand EQ and today's panelists, Michelle, Tabitha, Serena, and Lisa. Thanks for engaging on these issues. None of this is going to be possible without our series presenting sponsor, Canadian National Railway. So big shout out to them and to you, our viewers. Thanks for joining. Join us on an ongoing basis. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce is on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. We want to hear from you, and that way we'll keep things moving forward. We all need to be thinking inclusive.